Hello everyone, this is BritSimon. I hope you're all keeping well. So I wanted to particularly address an issue that's going to be important for some people around the world. People that have been approved relatively recently will perhaps have not made the first trip into the USA to activate their LPR status. And so they're sitting there with an immigrant visa and perhaps travel restrictions due to the current health crisis mean that they can't travel by the date of expiry on their visa. Okay, so what are the options for that sort of situation? So as I mentioned in another video, it is possible, although I've rarely talked about it before, it is possible to extend an immigrant visa for unavoidable reasons. And there is some guidance that's already existing about this. And although it is handled at embassy level and it's reviewed on a case-by-case basis, I think it's pretty likely that most embassies, given the current situation with regards to travel and country lockdowns, etc., and the general crisis, most embassies will do what they can to extend visas where that's possible this year. So let's just talk about that a little bit. So I've written a document here that I wanted to show you. I've written an article that explains a little bit about that, and I refer particularly to the guidance that is given to embassies around the world. So I want to show you that. I'll briefly go through that, which is this guidance. It comes from the Foreign Affairs Manual. And as I say, this is the definitive source of information for embassies. So embassy staff, if they're not sure how to process a query, they'll refer to this guidance manual. And so in this case, there is this existing guidance that talks about if you're satisfied that the applicant will be or was unable to use the immigrant visa because of reasons beyond the applicant's control, and this is an important bit, and for which the applicant is not responsible, then you may issue a replacement visa with the originally allocated visa number in the same fiscal year. Right? Now, there is some documentation about that there. You can read this for yourself from my blog article. It does mean that they can reissue visas. This will only be within certain parameters. Firstly, you will need to pay again the DV lottery fee. You'll need to have a new medical because the expiry date of the visa is based on the date of the medical. It's the medical date plus 6 months is actually what's printed on your visa. So this is going to be a financial impact to some people, but if you're determined that you want to come to the USA, then this may be your only choice. There are people, let's say, who are sitting there where they're looking at all the airlines cancelled the travel possibilities. America is closing its borders to some countries anyway. And so it just simply isn't going to be possible for some people to activate their visas. Now, this will be handled at local embassy level, meaning a local embassy will have to agree with you that you were unable to do anything else, and that was beyond the applicant's control, and for which the applicant is not responsible. Now, if you try and use this policy and the embassy considers that it was possible for you to travel, then they may choose not, in fact, to extend the visa, right? So you'll need to be aware of that. So I guess that really what that means is they're only going to be issuing this visa where or reissuing a visa where it was literally there was no other option. So this will not be useful beyond the time of this international crisis. It's not going to be if you just didn't feel like traveling because you felt that maybe you didn't want to wear, a mask or whatever. If you were able to travel, they may judge that you should have traveled. So you need to be a little bit careful about this, and make sure that that you are unable to travel. And in normal times, this just isn't going to be a possibility at all. Okay, so so you need to be a little bit sort of responsible about this. You're not going to be able to defer this entry for forever. I'll go on to that in a moment. And you're not going to be able to defer it if your country was still able to, if flights were running but you didn't feel like paying the price or whatever. Okay, so let's talk about timelines. For a DV lottery case, this is only going to be possible within the fiscal year that the visa was originally issued. Meaning, if your visa was issued, let's say in October of last year, and you're coming up to that timeline now, then you'll be able to renew your visa or extend your visa up to September 30th of 2020, right? If by some chance, I'm not sure if it's technically possible, but there may still just be some, let's see, October, November, December, yeah, January, February, March. It's possible that there is somebody sitting there right now, as I'm recording this today on March 21. It's possible that somebody who was issued a visa in DV 2019 at the end of September and only did their medical very late in September, it's possible someone still might have a few days of validity left on their visa, and for that person they would not be able to extend their visa because the end of the fiscal year has already occurred in that case, right? So I hope that's clear in a sense. So let's take a typical example. You're a DV 2020 candidate. Your expiry date is going to be, let's say, May of this year. Airlines are closed down. They're not flying. Country borders are locked down in your country, either because it's bad in your country or it's bad in the USA. And you get you've been waiting until May, and you should wait until May. There's no point in trying to extend your visa prior to the ending of the expiry on your visa. I'll cover that in a few minutes, but you've got to the point where your visa has pretty much expired or has expired, right? You would contact the embassy, and you'd need to do that in writing, and as long as there was reasonable justification, then they will at least consider reissuing that visa at any time up until September 30th of 2020, right? So you don't want to leave this too late in the year. If this crisis continues into May, June, July, August, etc., time is going to get very tight in order to reissue this visa. Okay, so it could be what you should do is wait until travel options are open again. And if travel looks like it's going to be open, or if it's getting towards September 30th, then you should apply to extend your visa from DV 2020. It will not be possible past September 30th of 2020 to extend your visa for a DV 2020 case, right? So you would extend it then, and the visa validity at that point, as long as you take the medical again, etc., the visa validity will go beyond September 30th of this year. So you can extend it in September, let's say, and you could travel all the way into early 2021, right? So you'll see my point, therefore, about why you don't want to apply for this extension too soon. If you're sitting here in March and you're thinking, okay, I've got my visa is going to need extending in May, and you apply now, well, you're going to be, you'll be extending it in, let's say, March, then April, May, June, July. It'll actually expire in August, and who knows, we could still be in the same lockdown situation in August. So it's not sensible or wise to extend too early. Wait until your visa has expired to do this. Now, if you want, you can contact the embassy and see what their reaction is going to be for this sort of situation. But it'll only be, that will just be a general inquiry. But I will show you how at least one embassy responded to this type of a request to someone just recently. That's also in my article here. I've put that in my article. And what they're saying, the way the embassy responded in this case was absolutely exactly on point, exactly as I would expect them to handle this situation. So they talk about it can be extended if you're unable to immigrate during the validity period of your immigrant visa. We may be able to issue you a replacement visa to extend the validity. And it goes on to say it's going to be a case-by-case basis. And Sydney Embassy say we're not able to review your case until your current visa has expired. That actually is slightly different to the wording on the official guidance, but nevertheless it's how Sydney have decided to operate their handle their dealings with regard to these requests. And to me, it's a more sensible decision. There's no point in extending now. Wait until your visa is expired for the reasons I just talked about. And then it also points out that the basis for the extension needs to still exist. And they're talking about family relationships because most immigrant visas are family-based or employment-based. So the conditions need to still exist. If you're emigrating on a job offer, that job offer still needs to be open and available to you. If you are if you're being invited by a family member and you're emigrating that way, you're being sponsored by a family member, that family member still needs to be alive and the relationship still needs to be existing, etc. So that's why that's in there. And you may need to update the DS-260. You may need to attend another interview. They could issue a visa without having another interview, but they may. That's how Sydney want to do things, right? And if you fall under a category where visa numbers are limited each year, then an immigrant visa will only be available to use within the month your visa was issued. That's to do with that's not really a diversity point. At that point, they make a separate point about here. Diversity visas may be limited, because of, in theory, because of visas being used up. But in reality, there's no way in the world that visas are going to be used up this year. Far from it. We're going to have a surplus of visas that will be wasted this year because of everything going on, right? So there's some sort of precautionary information there, and it talks about that, and that's fairly useful to read. And as I mentioned here, the lottery fee will need to be paid, the medical will need to be retaken, and they may want updates to the DS-260, they may want another interview, right? So there's 4 things there that you need to take a note of. But you can see that there is a framework for this to actually be done. So with a bit of luck and hopefully your embassy will see that this was unavoidable and that they will reissue the visa. Okay, I hope that's covered it. I feel like I should just recap. So you should be able to get a reissued visa. You'll need to go through certain procedures, including paying again the fees for the medical, the interview, etc. You'll need to pay those fees again, right? You will be able to extend the visa. Some embassies will extend them prior to the visa being terminated, the other one being expired. Other embassies might say they want to wait until they're expired. no embassy will be able to issue a visa beyond the end of the fiscal year, September 30th, 2020. And the validity period can extend beyond the end of the fiscal year based on the medical date that you take, the new medical that you'll have, right? That is possible. Okay, so I hope that's clear and cut and dry to everyone. I hope it will allay the fears of some of the people that are in the position at the moment. Just touching on another aspect, there are people waiting for interviews. I have talked about that in another video and other articles in the last few days. Interviews generally are being cancelled around the world in many embassies, and even KCC are now issuing cancellations for the month of May. So there is clearly going to be a lot of chaos later on. I don't know exactly how they're going to organise the rescheduling of interviews. They will reschedule interviews that have been cancelled, and those to some extent will be prioritised ahead of new numbers. But in reality, there's just chaos when when something like this happens, there will be chaos. The rescheduling, generally speaking, will be between the embassy and the applicant, and so it's up to the applicant to make sure the embassy reschedules them. And some people will drop the ball. I mean, some people are going to lose out by this because they won't understand what they're supposed to do. But all of my listeners, at least, will understand that you need to take care of, making sure that you've got your rescheduled interview date once the embassies have reopened. Okay, so I'll cover that more in a future video, and I'll try and keep information coming as I have it. There's a lot of things changing with regard to the spread of the virus itself, and therefore the impact to embassies around the world and the lottery process. And there certainly is going to be an impact. One commonly asked question, by the way, is, will the lottery program be extended? No, as I've mentioned in this video about visa validity, there is no possible way that they can extend the DV 2020 program beyond the end of September because it's written in law, and they would need to change the law or have a change of the law in order to do that. And right now, all of the lawmakers are concerned with many, many other things that are, in their minds, much more important than taking care of DV lottery cases and trying to extend dates or that sort of thing. That's just not going to be on anyone's priority. So there is not going to be an extension. The DV 2020 program will end on September 30th, and the DV 2021 process will start on October 1st in terms of interviews. The DV 2021 winners will be announced in May. That will continue. I'm assuming that KCC will to some extent stay open and processing cases, and so there will be some work done towards DV 2021. But we should expect a slow start for the year at least for DV 2021. Okay, all right. Well, I hope that's useful information for you, and please take care of yourselves. Take this health crisis seriously. Do all that you can to keep yourself healthy. All right. Thanks then. Bye bye now.